Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 313, The Reckoning. Ryan stood at the doorway, a small bell clutched tightly in his hand. It jingled erratically, a wild cascade of sound that shattered the silence. Boom! Just as he finished speaking, the grand doors creaked open. Ethan peered inside and was met with a wall of darkness. Then, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures flew out. The first 2 clearly hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop like discarded sacks. Ethan's eyes narrowed. It was Lachlan Silverwood and Sylvan Wynne. Crumpled. Motionless. Behind them, stepping through the threshold, came a man cloaked in dark energy. The same figure Ethan had encountered beneath the mountain before entering hidden territory. Well, Ethan thought as his lips tightened. No need to head in there anymore. The gathered people instantly tensed. The man's gaze swept over the crowd. HM? Whitmore family, Hargrove, Blackwell, Wynne, Quinn. Everyone's here. He smiled thinly. Good. Saves me the trouble of hunting you all down. His eyes landed on one particular elder. Oh, this old fossil's not dead yet. Just useless now, huh? He locked eyes with Grandmaster Quinn, voice dripping with disdain. Matriarch Whitmore stepped forward, placing herself between him and the rest. Who exactly are you? The man ignored her. Instead, he spoke with quiet finality. Whitmore and Wynne families leave. Now. Hargrove. Blackwell. Quinn, today you die. The words fell like a sentence already past, not a threat. A declaration. Brows knitted across the assembly. Why spare 2 families and doom the others? Gregory Hargrove, nursing a missing arm, stepped forward. We've never had any conflict with you. We only met today, and yet you tore off my arm. His voice was calm, cold. The kind of cold that came when there was nothing left to lose. At the very least. I deserve to know why. The man chuckled low and bitter. A fair question. One I myself asked 20 years ago to the 6 great houses. His dark energy began to pulse, rising like a coming storm. And do you know what they said? He paused. His voice dropped to a glacial whisper that echoed through the room. They said, because your surname is Selim. Ethan blinked. Selim? Quite a coincidence, as that was also his surname, but what did that have to do with anything? He wasn't the only one confused. The others exchanged puzzled glances. But Matriarch Whitmore's cane rattled as her hand began to tremble. Her entire frame quivered as she stepped forward. Who is Overlord Selim to you? She asked softly. The man stiffened. Seconds passed. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost a layer of its frost, but it remained distant. Matriarch Whitmore. Why ask what you already know? She swayed. Her grip on her cane slipped. Melinda rushed to her side, catching her before she could fall. Melinda stared at the man, eyes wide. You're young Starfall? The energy around him flickered. For a breath, it was as if he'd forgotten how to breathe. Then he exhaled. Ah! Melinda. You're married now, aren't you? Is your husband dead yet? Ethan couldn't help it. He snorted, then burst out laughing. Seriously? Who opens a conversation with that? You trying to move in or something? He glanced at Melinda. She looked 27, 28 at most. How old was she really? Melinda's jaw dropped. Then she marched forward, cheeks flushed with fury, reaching out to tug his ear. Starfall dodged in a dark blur. Melinda, he warned gently, you really shouldn't touch this demonic energy. Melinda, enough. Matriarch Whitmore's voice rang out. Everyone turned in shock. The matriarch released her cane, dropped into a slow, respectful bow, and said, this old woman pays her respects to the young master. A hush fell. He's. None of the current family heads had met the former ruler. But all knew the lore that once the noble 8 bowed to a single master. The master who sat in the central seat of every council hall, whose presence had vanished 40 years ago. Now he stood before them again. Matriarch Whitmore bowed. Starfall sidestepped. She turned with him, refusing to rise. Melinda quite shook, prepared to bow as well, until Starfall cut her off coldly. Matriarch Whitmore. Melinda. If you 2 insist on bowing again, they'll slaughter everyone from the Blackwell, Quinn, and Hargrove families. What the hell? That unspoken thought surged through the ranks of the 3 families. But no one dared say a word. The pressure around him was suffocating. Ethan, like the others, became a silent spectator. Yet he watched closely. This Selim fellow, he was something else. In the last 2 days, Ethan had watched the family heads strut around like peacocks, full of pride. They hadn't given him the time of day, not for his own merit. Only thanks to the Whitmore family's protection. But this man? He stood before all of them, unafraid, casually speaking of execution, and no one dared breathe wrong. Matriarch Whitmore slowly rose. The young master's word is law, she announced. Why haven't you thanked him yet? Thank you, young master. They all chorused instantly. No hesitation. No dignity. Ethan stared speechless. This scene struck him as insane. 1 second they were like proud aristocrats, the next they were groveling like beggars. Even Matriarch Whitmore, now so humble and grounded. Starfall's brows rose in faint surprise. He hadn't expected her to manipulate the moment like that. But he shook it off. Matriarch Whitmore, he said, you know very well what lies between them and me. Back then their great houses drained my life force, sealed my soul, forced me to reveal the method to break the barrier. His voice cracked. They also caused the death of it. He paused. Ethan could feel the rage simmering beneath the surface, ready to erupt. How do you expect me to forgive that? He turned, eyes sweeping the room. The family heads looked at each other, utterly lost. They knew none of this. You demon. Iris Hargrove snapped. Spouting lies, how could the noble eight? Smack. The slap echoed. Ethan didn't need to look to know who it was. Gregory Hargrove's hands still hung in the air. Iris spun a full 720 degrees and crashed to the floor. Her cheek ballooned into a swollen mass. She was out cold. Everyone ignored it. Like it hadn't happened. Matriarch Whitmore's face burned with shame. Young master, she said quietly, those who hurt you are long gone. This generation, they're innocent. But Starfall didn't calm down, instead the air grew heavier. Darker. Innocent? He hissed. If they're innocent, wasn't June innocent too? And the child in her womb? He took a step forward. The dark energy howled around him like firestorms unleashed. Hiss. 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 The very air trembled. A massive boulder beside him sizzled. The moment the dark energy brushed against it, half of it melted away into vapor. Chapter 3:14, Revelations. The moment he stepped forward, terror swept across every face. The power radiating from him no longer belonged to the realm of the King tier. It had already stepped into the domain of an intent user. And not just any intent user, he stood above most. Even Matriarch Whitmore, the strongest among them, was only at the advanced tier. The rest were still at the beginner tier, far beneath what they now faced. Yet Matriarch Whitmore stood her ground, unwavering in the face of the suffocating pressure. Starfall. She called, voice steady. She didn't use his title, young master, this time. She spoke his name directly. Seeing that his terrifying aura hadn't subsided, she continued slowly, deliberately. Do you know why the 6 family heads of that generation died after you disappeared? There was a pause. Then, it was June, the one you spoke of, who used some sinister technique to slowly drain their life force, piece by piece. In the end, she said, voice quieter, they all died. Sick, frail, in their beds. You're lying. Starfall's voice thundered, raw with fury. But even as he spoke, his overwhelming aura faltered, retreating just slightly. I saw them kill June with my own eyes. Despite the crushing pressure, Grandmaster Quinn, lacking any protective power, somehow found the strength to speak. Matriarch Whitmore speaks the truth. When my brother Quentin returned back then, he had lost all his strength. He told me he was injured by a pregnant woman. That must have been June, the very same June you speak of. The other family heads looked at each other. Memories stirred. 19, maybe 20 years ago, their fathers or masters had also mysteriously lost their powers. But none of them had ever dared speak of it. Nonsense. June was just an ordinary woman. Impossible. This can't be happening. June isn't dead? She's not dead. Starfall looked like he was unraveling. A thread pulled too tight. From a distance, Ethan quickly pulled Lila and the others back behind cover. This guy isn't about to go berserk and start slaughtering, is he? And then Starfall vanished. He shot into the sky, a dark streak against the horizon, moving in the opposite direction. Is he leaving? For a brief moment, a collective breath caught in their throats, poised to exhale. Whoosh. But at that moment, he suddenly returned. Thump. Thump. 2 heavy sounds echoed across the field. Lachlan Silverwood and Sylvan Wynn, who had been lying unconscious on the ground, suddenly arched as their chests burst open. 2 bloody hearts were ripped out with brutal precision. Crunch, crunch. From within the black flames surrounding Starfall came the unmistakable sound of chewing. Several girls turned away, nauseous, doubling over as they vomited. Even Ethan felt bile rise in his throat, his stomach churning. The next second, Starfall vanished again, this time for good. Hiss, hiss, hiss. A series of small objects zipped through the air. Matriarch Whitmore, swift and calm, caught every single one in her outstretched hand. No one spoke. They all watched the direction had flown in the silence stretching. After a long pause, Matriarch Whitmore finally sighed. He probably won't be coming back. She opened her palm. Inside lay 42 beads, each the size of a soybean, glowing softly, humming with energy. They were energy cores. Gasps rippled through the crowd as realization dawned. The family heads, just moments ago cowering, now stared wide-eyed, their expressions full of greed and disbelief. Matriarch Whitmore's lips curled into a triumphant smile. My Whitmore family wants 15. Any objections? Silence reigned. Not because they agreed, far from it. But because they couldn't argue. They exchanged glances, then looked back at her. Her fingers closed around the energy cores as if daring them to speak up. The message was clear: disagree and you get nothing. There were 4 family heads left, plus Donovan Silverwood. All of them were old, so they understood her message perfectly. Their faces soured like they'd swallowed nails, but they nodded reluctantly. Haha, good. Matriarch Whitmore waved her hand. The family heads of Wynn, Quinn, Blackwell, and Hargrove each received 6 cores. Amber Zane got one, quietly slipping it into her robes. Donovan Silverwood was also given one. His eyes nearly popped out from surprise. What, you think that's too little? Matriarch Whitmore snapped, glaring. No, no. Donovan stammered, quickly hiding the core like a guilty child. Matriarch Whitmore still had 16 beats left. After a moment of thought, she flicked one toward Samuel Wynn. When we get out, send this to the Wynn family. Ethan watched her methodical distribution. Despite appearances, it was a balanced approach, reward and punishment both. The Zane, Silverwood and Wynn families had lost the most. Each received only one energy core, a bitter consolation from a harvest that happened once every decade. They would barely have enough to sustain their hidden territories. Though knowing the Silverwood family, they likely had reserves tucked away. Ethan, did you see Dad? Lila asked softly, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. Ethan frowned and slowly shook his head. Lila's eyes dimmed, a flicker of panic surfacing. We need to leave. Quickly. Dad is being controlled by Luna Silverwood. I'm afraid they'll hurt him. Do you know where they are? Ethan asked, his voice low. Lila hesitated, then nodded. Meanwhile, Matriarch Whitmore and the others were preparing to depart. The crisis had passed. Lachlan Silverwood's grand scheme had been shattered, ironically, by Starfall's unexpected return. The true tragedy, though, lay in the thousands who had come to participate in the tournament, only to be turned into nutrients. Ethan's brows furrowed. Where had all that blood gone? Was it used to nourish that nexus? He had no way of knowing. Off to the side, he noticed Donovan frowning, clearly deep in thought. He seemed like he wanted to speak, but hesitated. Before he could, Matriarch Whitmore beat him to it. You're wondering why your elder brother wasn't harmed by June back then, aren't you? It's because he ran. Escaped early. But he didn't leave unscathed. He was only lightly injured. If he hadn't been, Lachlan wouldn't have been able to overpower and kill him later. Donovan slowly nodded. Her explanation made sense. But as he looked down at Lachlan's cold corpse, his expression darkened again. Letting him die like this feels too easy. I still want to know why he imprisoned me beside the ancestor's statue. Looking at things now, it was completely pointless. If not for the help of a master, even with my own essence pearl condensed from energy core, I doubt I could have reformed this physical body. Matriarch Whitmore shook her head. She didn't have an answer, but she was clearly curious about the mysterious master he mentioned. Everyone began packing up. With a swift kick, Donovan sent his brothers and Sylvan Wynn's corpses tumbling into the nearby lake. Ethan winced. Damn, that old geezer was despicable, sure. But he was still your brother, right? Just dumping the bodies in the lake like trash? Well, not his problem. Ethan didn't plan to interfere. Soon they all mounted the golden dragon conjured by Matriarch Whitmore and began ascending once more. Once they landed, Lila immediately grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him toward the Silverwood family's inner sanctum. They hurried through twisting corridors and shadowed halls before arriving at a concealed chamber. As soon as the door opened, Ethan recoiled. A thick stench of blood and medicine hit him like a wall. He frowned, his senses reaching into the room. Inside was a high-tech medical facility, cold, sterile, and humming with machinery. Chapter 315, The Hidden Chambers. Inside the medical room, two men lay unconscious on separate gurneys. Ethan didn't recognize either of them at first. But what drew his attention was a transparent isolation tank at the center of the room, made from an unfamiliar material. It wasn't just visually striking, it blocked his senses entirely. He could detect the tank's outline, but nothing beyond that. Inside it was a man. Tubes ran along his body and he lay still unconscious. Ethan narrowed his eyes. It was Lila's father. Despite his appearance, the readings on the nearby equipment suggested he was stable, no longer in critical danger. The two men on the gurneys looked to be around the same age as Lila's father and oddly bore a faint resemblance to him. Between them stood a machine humming quietly. Ethan examined it with growing curiosity. It was clearly a hybrid of advanced technology and magic, an unusual and rare combination. But this wasn't the time to get distracted. Saving Lila's father was the entire reason for coming to the Silverwood estate. Dad! Lila rushed to the tank, pressing her hands against the glass. She tapped it desperately, her voice trembling. Ethan moved beside her, gently pulling her back. Don't worry. We'll get him out. Just hang on. Not wanting to take any risks with the machine, he quickly called out for Evelyn. She entered moments later, eyes widening in disbelief at the scene. But at Ethan's urging, she moved swiftly, examining the device's interface. After a few adjustments and key presses, hiss, the tank's cover began to open with a slow release of pressurized air. Right then, Ryan and the others arrived. Together they helped lift Lila's father from the tank and onto a mobile gurney. After a thorough check, Evelyn stepped back, frowning slightly. His boat is fine, perfectly stable. But he's in a deep coma. I can't say when he'll wake up. Lila's eyes brimmed with tears. Ethan tried casting 2 healing spells, one after another. They shimmered brightly but had no effect. Clearly magic could heal wounds, but not this. A gruff voice cut through the moment. Lachlan Silverwood, you son of a bitch. Donovan stood between the 2 gurneys, his expression twisting in fury as he turned over one of the unconscious men. His hands trembled with rage. Evelyn! Over here. Now! Everyone looked on in confusion. Why was he so enraged at a man who looked long dead? Evelyn rushed to his side, running diagnostics on the body. Granduncle? What's going on? Lila asked just as she and the others finished moving her father's gurney. Donovan waved them off. It's nothing. Take the family head out first. Ethan, stay here. Evelyn, too. He waited until the others were gone, then turned to Ethan. You two must know. Your son? Ethan blurted out, cutting him off. Donovan froze. His face twitched between surprised denial then reluctant acceptance. Yes. I knew you had a secret, kid, Ethan said with a smirk, giving Donovan a teasing pat on the shoulder. You should have just told us earlier. Donovan rolled his eyes. This isn't the time. But are you sure he's your son? Ethan asked more seriously. Before Donovan could answer, Evelyn chimed in. Granduncle Donovan, his vitals are collapsing. He needs a blood transfusion immediately. Donovan didn't hesitate. He rolled up his sleeve without a word. Just as Evelyn prepared the equipment, Ethan's back suddenly lit up. A towering ethereal tree shimmered into view behind him. Tree form, he muttered. Rejuvenation. Healing spell. Life loom. Within 3 seconds the aura receded. Ethan stepped back, the healing done. Donovan stared stunned. Had never witnessed Ethan's healing magic firsthand. Then, the machine between the two gurneys roared to life. No, wait. Evelyn cried. It's drawing his blood. It's injecting it into the other one. Before they could react, a splatter. Blood burst into the air, red and white streaking across the room. Donovan's eyes burned. He slammed his palm into the other man's head. The crack echoed sharply. Evelyn screamed. The machine powered down, its lights dimming. What the hell just happened? Ethan barked, staring at the blood on his own face. You old? Did you just kill that guy? Donovan looked at the body, expression grim. That was Lachlan's child. He turned to Ethan, voice bitter. Now it makes sense. They used my soul to suppress the ancestor statue's will. Ethan blinked, still trying to wipe blood off his cheek. They planned to rewrite the statue's bloodline recognition, Donovan continued. By using my son's blood funneled into his child. They were trying to forge a rightful heir. Ethan tried to follow. He counted on his fingers. So, couldn't they have just drawn blood from the actual family head? Donovan shook his head and pointed to the tank. They created the illusion that his bloodline had vanished. That forced the ancestors' will into dormancy. He explained further, long-winded and dense, but Ethan eventually pieced it together. Still his focus drifted. Something wasn't sitting right. As they turned to leave, Ethan suddenly stopped just shy of the exit. His body flickered, and with a loud crack he drove his fist straight through the wall. Ah! A scream echoed from inside the steel. I got her. Ethan shouted. Old man, help me. Donovan arrived instantly. Forming a hand blade, he slashed through the wall with 3 quick strikes. With a grunt, Ethan yanked his arm back, pulling out a thick steel panel nearly 3 centimeters thick. A woman was pinned against it. Luna. Donovan's face twisted with fury. He seized her by the hair and dragged her away from Ethan. Uncle, please. I was forced. Uncle 8 made me. Luna's face turned pale, her pleas rapid and desperate. Ethan ignored her, turning his gaze toward the hidden passage revealed behind the panel. Where does that lead? The walls of the medical room were built entirely from this strange alloy, one that heavily suppressed senses. Ethan now understood why his detection range had been limited. It was only because Luna had pressed herself against the steel to peek through a pinhole-sized crack that had noticed anything at all. Each time she finished spying, she left, likely to report elsewhere. Ethan stepped inside. The corridor twisted like a maze. Without his sharpened senses, he would have gotten lost in minutes. Eventually he reached another door, same steel, same sense-blocking properties. He placed a hand on it, trying to find a mechanism. Nothing. He sighed. Of course. Bare form. Heavy strike. As he raised his palm ready to smash through. Click. The panel slid open noiselessly to the left. A figure stood behind it. Ethan froze mid-swing. Oh. This thing slides? Not push or pull. The person on the other side stiffened upon seeing him. You. Chapter 316, The Confrontation. Ethan's eyes narrowed the moment he saw the man standing in the doorway. Without hesitation, he launched his skill straight at him. The door had opened to reveal Liam Silverwood, the so-called Silverwood steward. Neither of them had expected to see the other. Liam certainly hadn't expected a punch the moment the door creaked open. Ethan hadn't meant to hit him either. His skill had been aimed at the steel panel behind the door and had packed a ton of force into it. Unfortunately, Liam had picked the worst possible time to appear. Still, this wasn't just any person. Liam Silverwood also happened to be a combat instructor. And he wasn't slow to react. Startled but sharp, Liam immediately unleashed the Silverwood family's signature technique, Veil Hand. Boom. Their hands collided with a deafening crash. Ethan stumbled back 3 steps. Liam did the same. The strike was perfectly matched. Ethan blinked, genuinely surprised. Liam had just taken a direct hit from Bear Form's heavy strike and barely flinched. That wasn't something most people could do. Across from him, Liam's gaze was equally stunned. Had reacted in a rush, but he still used 70% of his strength. By any measure, Ethan was part of the younger generation. Yet no one in the entire Silverwood Junior ranks had ever managed to withstand even half of his power. Not even Lila, brilliant and gifted as she was, had shown any interest in combat. But what truly shocked Liam wasn't just the blow exchange. It was what happened next. Before Liam could even steady himself, Ethan had already shed the weight of his momentum and charged again, this time even fiercer. Liam's eyes sharpened, he quickly turned on his heel and bolted. Goldie, don't run. I've got bones. Ethan's shout echoed through the hallway as he took off after him. He whipped out a lamb chop bone from his storage, a little souvenir had swiped earlier from the Silverwood kitchen and tucked away in his mindscape. The name Goldie rang in Liam's ears like a slap. It triggered a flash of the mocking jeers from the Whitmore siblings back in the council hall. Fury surged through him as his stride wobbled. He nearly tripped. Whoosh. Right at that moment a bone flew past his head. Liam's expression darkened like a storm cloud. Ethan, still in hot pursuit, was impressed despite himself. Liam was fast, really fast. Even with panther form active, Ethan could barely keep pace. Had never met anyone on foot who could match him like this. Liam dashing ahead was even more rattled than Ethan. What the hell is this kid made of? Originally his plan had been simple, create some distance then use Failhand's ranged techniques to chip away at Ethan's stamina. But now? Now he was stuck in a flat-out sprint for his life. Stopping to fight meant losing the first exchange. And maybe the second. And possibly his face. Luckily he knew this underground passage inside and out. A few twists later an isolation barrier came into view. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small remote and hit the close button. The door ahead was already open, slowly sliding toward shut. Liam darted through just in time. Ethan saw it all happening, saw the trap, but he was a second too late. The isolation door slammed shut right in front of him. He skidded to a stop and lashed out with a furious kick. Boom. The steel door dented, but it didn't budge. Panther form was fast, but it didn't have the raw power of bear form. He could switch, but it'd take too long and Liam was already gone. Just as he prepared to try again, a voice called out from behind him. Ethan. It was Donovan Silverwood. Ethan turned as the old man approached, then quickly explained what had just happened. Donovan glanced at the door and patted Ethan on the shoulder, then ushered him back to the medical room. No rush, he said. That little rascal won't get far. We'll catch him soon enough. The entrance to the hidden territory had already been opened, but it would be closing again shortly to conserve energy. They had to move fast. Ethan looked around, but Luna Silverwood was nowhere in sight. He had no idea how Donovan had dealt with her. When he reunited with Lila, she was waiting for him at the hidden territory's exit. She was trying to escort her father out, but a crowd of Silverwood elders who'd vanished earlier had suddenly reappeared. Ethan frowned. So now you show yourselves and you're blocking Lila? They were firmly against letting the family head leave. None of them had sided with Lachlan Silverwood, they weren't traitors. But they were a bunch of crusty traditionalists clinging to their authority like dusty relics. Some of them were even older than Donovan. Just then Donovan himself arrived on the scene. He stopped, took one look at the group and muttered under his breath, "These old geezers." Then he turned to Ethan with a sly grin. "I'm out. You handle this one." Ethan nodded. He knew what that meant. The Ultimers were used to throwing their weight around. If Donovan stepped in, they'd probably just talk his ears off. Ethan strode forward toward Lila. Her father's gurney was being dragged by a few younger members of the Silverwood family, clearly following the old geezer's orders. Lila caught sight of him and opened her mouth to speak, but then Ethan winked at her. She caught on instantly, pretending not to know him. Her angry expression melted into a faint knowing smile. She didn't need to say a word. With him here, everything would be handled. What the hell? Didn't you see your grandfather Markham here? Still blocking the damn way? Ethan marched forward, voice booming with false outrage. An elder, startled by the shout, turned around puzzled. Grandfather Markham? That name hadn't been uttered in decades, if ever. The old man blinked, unable to make sense of what he was hearing. Ethan didn't give him a chance. You deaf or just stupid? What are you looking at your grandfather Markham for? Want a beating? The elder's mouth flapped open, but no sound came out. Did you not hear me? Ethan continued. I said answer your damn grandfather Markham. Then without warning. Smack. A loud slap rang out. The old man spun a full 360 degrees before collapsing into a crumpled heap on the ground. His legs bent in directions they probably shouldn't. Ethan had held back, he wasn't trying to kill anyone. But even a light slap from him was no joke. The entire crowd gasped. Voices erupted. You bastard! Markham, how dare you hit our 19th elder? Markham, you've gone too far. Grab him. He's Markham from the Whitmore family. Ethan froze. Wait. What? Markham? He turned his head confused. Then he spotted the source of the chaos. Lars, grinning in the shadows, was the one shouting. Chapter 317, The Escape and the Premonition. Lila, Leroy and the others had taken full advantage of the chaos. Amid the confusion, they managed to seize the Silverwood family head and escape from the hidden territory unscathed. What they didn't realize, however, was that someone had already slipped out ahead of them. It was Liam Silverwood, the one person Ethan had failed to catch. Outside the hidden territory atop the mist-covered mountain, 4 members of the Whitmore family still lingered. Ethan had spoken with them earlier, hoping they could help escort the unconscious family head. He also intended to visit the Whitmore family territory himself. After all, the Chase siblings were headed there too. Their grandfather, Dr. Aldrich, was still with the Whitmore family. Ethan couldn't help but wonder what that old man was thinking, had gone to the Whitmore family without so much as a word to Evelyn or the others. It had been over a year. The kids had nearly starved during his absence. More than anything, though, Ethan felt that the Whitmore family were decent people. Their hidden territory was sparsely populated, peaceful, quiet, and devoid of unnecessary entanglements. He wanted to check the place out and possibly speak with the matriarch about staying there for a while. But his reasons ran deeper. He wanted to bring Leo and the others too. Emery's warning still echoed in his mind, the dissenters remain his greatest threat. And then there was that final chilling reminder. Don't think all originalists are righteous and honorable. That one line had put Ethan on high alert. What if the originalists tried to win him over through deception? Or worse, tried to frame the dissenters? He couldn't afford to let anyone mislead him. To be safe, had already discussed this possibility with Markham. But uncharacteristically, Markham, who usually took matters into his own hands, hadn't given Ethan a clear answer. At that moment, Markham stood outside the entrance to the hidden territory wrapped in thick clouds. He was shivering, sneezing nonstop. What the hell? What's going on? He grumbled, sniffling. "Aunt, touch me. Am I running a fever?" Melinda raised an eyebrow. "You're sick?" She placed a hand on his forehead, then promptly rolled her eyes. "You're fine. Probably just been up to no good again, someone's cursing you." Just then a figure burst out of the doorway and slammed into Markham, nearly knocking him off his feet. "Holy hell, it's you!" he exclaimed. "Don't run." It was Liam Silverwood. Markham instinctively gave chase. "Colt, don't bother," said Matriarch Whitmore calmly. "With your broken arm, you're not catching anyone." Moments later, Lila and the Chase siblings appeared, pushing a mobile gurney. Lying atop it was Ambrose Silverwood, Lila's father, and the Silverwood family head. Markham hurried over to help. Then a blur of motion shot past them. "Run." The voice rang out just as a man swooped and grabbed the gurney with shocking ease, slung it over his shoulder, and leapt straight off the 10,000-foot cliff. Everyone froze. "It's Ethan," Markham blurted out. But then his expression twisted. "Wait, what's he doing? Jumping off a cliff with his father-in-law on his back? Is this some kind of joint suicide pact?" Lila rushed to the edge of the cliff, heart in her throat. What she saw, however, stunned her. Floating gently behind Ethan was an adorably clumsy, ethereal creature flapping tiny wings. It hovered awkwardly, carrying Ethan and the gurney as they descended safely. Ambrose Silverwood remained unconscious but unharmed atop the mobile gurney. Lila exhaled, finally relaxing. "Phew." Suddenly a loud roar echoed from behind. "Don't let them escape." A horde of furious Silverwood Jr. members surged out from the hidden territory, charging toward Lila and the others. "By the ancients," Markham muttered. He pulled out a 5-point foil star and with a few words cast a spell. Roar. A blinding golden light erupted. A massive dragon soul materialized, its tail sweeping through the air and scattering the charging members like leaves in a storm. "Your grandfather Markham is here. Don't cause trouble." Markham stood tall, radiating confidence. For a moment he looked truly majestic. Then came the response. "Whitmore family. Grandfather? Holy hell, get him." Markham blinked. "Wait, what?" A storm of flying weapons erupted. Sandstones, he could even see a bra pad soar through the air, aimed directly at him. He stood there dumbfounded. What the hell? Why are they acting like this? Unbeknownst to him, the name Grandfather Markham had become infamous among these members of the Silverwood family. Not a single one had escaped being punched or slapped at least once by Ethan, who had claimed to be Markham previously. Some were lucky, one strike per side, while others received on the same side multiple times. As a result, they all had lopsided appearances. Now they were out for blood. Even as Markham puffed himself up and spoke, it only made things worse. Every word fanned the flames. The more he talked, the more vicious their attacks became. Normally the Whitmore name might have protected him, but today, it only seemed to enrage them more. Beaten black and blue, Markham had no choice. He summoned his dragon soul and took off down the cliff. Unfortunately, his soul beast wasn't nearly as sturdy as Matriarch Whitmore's. It wobbled under his weight, descending too fast for comfort. "Aunt, save me." Below, Melinda sighed and reached out, catching her nephew Miffal. By now Ethan had already landed safely. He and the gurney had glided a great distance. Outside the hidden territory, his phone signal returned. 3 days later they emerged from the remote mountains and found a nearby town. After securing a vehicle, they made their way toward the capital. Ambrose Silverwood was sent back home to receive proper treatment. Lila stayed behind, wanting to be with her parents. Ethan, however, boarded a different car as soon as they reached the outskirts. His destination, Ember City. He couldn't explain it, just a gut feeling, but something was wrong. The closer he got to Ember City, the stronger the feeling grew. It tightened around his throat like an invisible noose. By the time he reached the gym, he was nearly breathless. But then he pushed open the door and saw Celia and Victor sitting at the bar. In that instant, the pressure vanished. "Ethan," Celia called out. "Bro," Victor chimed in. It was daytime and Leo and the others were all around helping out at the gym. Under Celia's management, the place had become a well-known combat gym in the area. Having 3 combat experts as boxing coaches didn't hurt either. The gloom that had followed Ethan for days lifted the moment he saw his people again. But what he didn't know was that far above, in a drifting cloud beyond the reach of his senses, a man and a one-eyed creature which resembled a dragon were watching. The instant Ethan opened the gym door, they turned and quietly slipped away. Chapter 318, Coming Home to Ember City. Back in Ember City, Ethan finally felt like he was home. At the gym, he didn't say much, just told everyone to meet at his place that evening. There was something they needed to hear. He shot a look at Williams. "That wife of yours, secretly married and all, maybe it's time she showed her face?" Williams hesitated. Haha. Bro, he's already secretly divorced, Leo blurted out, laughing with zero restraint. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What the hell? Had only been gone a few days. Divorced already? He didn't press it. Just let it slide. After some quick small talk, Ethan took off. He had a lot to prepare, starting with supplies. On the way back, he got the final green light from matriarch Whitmore. He'd be staying with their family for now. No chance he was returning to the Silverwoods, not with the chaos swirling around that place. Surprisingly, the old woman seemed pleased about it. Truth be told, Ethan felt more at ease with the Whitmores. With them, he actually felt like he belonged. He spent the rest of the afternoon running errands. Markham had been blunt, their home had no functioning electrical infrastructure. So Ethan bought 10 full-scale solar panel rigs along with a set of industrial-grade batteries. Same kind he'd seen back at the Silverwoods. The Whitmores didn't have anything like that. They'd need to be self-sufficient. From what Markham hinted, the family wasn't doing great financially. Small household. Fewer cases lately. They only stepped in when things got truly out of hand. Most of their work was pro bono for the community for public safety. And even though Markham played the clown half the time, Ethan knew the guy was carrying the weight of the entire family. Because he was the last able-bodied man left. Ethan had once asked what illness had taken his father. Markham just gave him a bitter smile and shook his head. Then added jokingly, but not really, Ethan, if I ever end up bedridden too, you'll help out around the house yet. Ethan had laughed. But Markham hadn't looked like he was kidding. They didn't talk about it again. By sundown, Ethan had nearly wiped out Maple Mart's entire stockroom. At exactly 7 p.m. Leo, Williams and Victor showed up, Victor with his wife Celia in tow. They'd planned to take Ethan out for dinner to give him a proper welcome home. He declined. Ethan, what's with the mystery? Leo asked, clearly itching to know something. Ya man, Williams added, you've got a whole mess waiting in the guild. You go missing and am the one juggling everything. Whole leadership disappeared today. That's gonna raise flags, Leo muttered. Celia smiled. Come on, just say it. Once everyone was seated, Ethan didn't waste time. We're moving out, he said flatly. Moving? Leo echoed, frowning. Ethan nodded and laid it all out, the situation with Celeste, everything. When he finished, the room fell into silence. Victor stood abruptly. Then we moved tonight. I felt something these past few days. Like we're being watched. And it's not passive, it's killing intent. You all know the kind of energy I've awakened. I don't imagine this stuff. Leo and Williams exchanged looks but stayed quiet. Out of the three of them, only Victor had reached energy awakening. If he felt it, it was real. What about the gym? Celia asked, turning to Ethan. He was the actual owner after all. Ethan paused. Message the staff. Let them know we're closing for now. We're going on an indefinite break. Salaries continue as normal. Celia nodded and pulled out her phone, drafting a message in the group chat. Not that there were many employees left, just 2 front desk clerks and a high school girl working part-time while caring for her dad. Wait until after we leave, Victor said suddenly. Celia blinked. Then nodded. They'll go pack. It'll help, Victor said, following her. 1 hour, Ethan called after them. We leave tonight. Leo and Williams got up too, heading to the spare rooms in the gym to gather their things. Half an hour later, they returned, each with a single backpack slung over their shoulders. But Victor and Celia still hadn't come back. Concerned, Ethan grabbed Leo and stepped outside. Across the street, every floor of Victor and Celia's place was lit up. He could see their shadows moving through the second-floor window. Looked like an argument? We'll go start the car, Ethan said, tossing him the keys to the Predator Beast X. Leo, let's check it out. The two crossed the road and knocked. Turns out it wasn't a fight, just an intense debate over what to bring. Victor wanted to travel light, but Celia was firm. Ethan said, we don't know how long this break will be. If we're not sure we're coming back, I'm taking everything we need. That car has space. She meant the Predator Beast X, of course. Victor looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last half hour. Ethan glanced around at the mountain of items already packed in the living room, pots and pans, bedding, clothes, spices, pantry supplies, even their wedding photo. Celia was halfway through dragging down the mattress when Victor caught her. If he hadn't stepped in, she might have hauled the bed frame down too. To be fair, they'd furnished the whole place themselves. The house had only come with the renovations. No furniture, no appliances. Not even curtains. So yeah, she had a point. That fight Ethan had seen from the street? It had been about the bed. Eventually Celia realized the mattress wasn't going to fit anyway. Now all their belongings sat in towering stacks across the living room. Celia, maybe just reconsider? Victor pleaded, rubbing his temples. Even 2 predators couldn't hold all this. No biggie. Well managed, she replied without missing a beat. Ethan stepped forward casually. If there's anything else you want to bring, just let me know. He caught the look on her face, a faint pout. She didn't want to leave anything behind. She'd picked every one of these items with Victor. Ethan? Victor looked at him confused. Seriously? Celia's eyes lit up. But Ethan didn't answer. Just smiled, slightly mysterious. Store, he whispered, snapping his fingers. Whooshy. Everything in the living room vanished without a trace. Oh. Celia gasped, covering her mouth. Holy, Leo's jaw dropped. He blinked and rubbed his eyes, stunned. Retrieve, Ethan said calmly, snapping again. Whooshy. Everything reappeared exactly where it had been. For a few seconds nobody moved. Then all three of them turned toward Ethan with the same wide-eyed expression. Celia saw quickly morphed into pure excitement. "Ethan, come here, now!" she shouted, grabbing his arm and dragging him toward the bedroom. Victor just shook his head, smiling helplessly. As Ethan passed, he gave Victor a light pat on the shoulder. A knowing look passed between them. Chapter 319, The Dragon's Roar. The next day, 7 a.m. Ashhorn Mountains near Dragavault Ridge. Williams eased the vehicle to a stop on the gravel shoulder. "Ethan, we're here." No one had logged into the game last night. Ethan had barely managed to catch a few hours of sleep. Ever since they'd set off, Victor had been on edge. He could feel it again. That same killing aura. And for Ethan, a gnawing sense of dread had returned, creeping in like a fog that wouldn't lift. All night Ethan had kept his soul sense extended. It now spanned nearly 5 miles. Despite the strain it put on his soul power, he hadn't dared let it down, not until exhaustion finally took him 3 hours ago. Markham's instructions were clear. Ethan was to reach the highest point on the left flank of Dragavault Ridge. He would be waiting there. Once they stopped, Ethan turned to Williams. "Need a break?" The man had been driving all night, it showed. Williams shook his head. "I'm good." Ethan didn't press the issue. He pulled out a spread of food from his storage and handed it around. Once they had eaten and hydrated, they stepped out and prepared to proceed on foot. With a wave of his hand, the hulking predator Beast X vanished into thin air. The others didn't even blink. By now they were used to Ethan's inexplicable storage abilities. What still intrigued them was the scale of the space he had access to. As they began their climb up the narrow mountain path, Ethan glanced back at Victor. "Still feel anything?" Victor shook his head. "No. It faded about an hour before we stopped." Ethan gave a short nod and continued on. They moved in near silence. With Celia among them, a regular human, so they had to keep a measured pace. By 11 they reached the spot Markham had described. But once there, Ethan frowned. There was nothing. No entrance, no marker. Just an abrupt dead end. Unlike the Silverwood family's hidden territory where a visible chain had guided them into the cloud, this place offered no such clue. What Ethan didn't know was that the Silverwood family had sealed their entrance, and currently that chain had become invisible. "Bro." A voice rang out. A figure stepped straight from the mountain wall. Ethan spun around and there stood Markham. But what truly caught him off guard was Melinda stepping out right behind him. Leo, standing closest to the rock face, had seen it all. 2 people emerging from solid stone. When Markham passed by, Leo instinctively reached out to touch the wall. It was firm. Real. He stared at it, unsettled. Before he could speak, Ethan was already urging Markham. "Hurry. Get everyone inside. Now." The feeling of dread had returned, stronger than before. Melinda's voice cut through the tension. "Ethan, you've been followed. How could you be so careless?" Ethan's chest tightened. He knew it. Had suspected it since last night. Without delay, he recounted everything Head sensed on their journey. Melinda didn't respond immediately. Instead, she summoned a 5-point conduit shaped like a foil star. It floated in the air, gleaming with a power unlike any Ethan had seen. He noticed the difference instantly. Markham and Mariah's conduits had been pale white with a hint of pink. Melinda's was a brilliant blue streaked with red gold veins. Ayo! The star-shaped conduit warped and morphed, taking the shape of a dragon's head. Golden regal alive. With a roar, it surged forward, and as it flew, its body unfurled behind it, segment by segment, forming from the void. The conduit had become a dragon, a living gate to another realm. The Dragon Vault. As it passed, the cloud churned violently, then from deep in the sea of clouds something stirred. A blood-red shape slithered into view. A tail, long, serpentine, and alien. It lashed out toward the dragon with terrifying force. Melinda's golden dragon struck back. Boom! The collision echoed like thunder. The dragon's light dimmed and the red tail was sent hurtling backward, crashing through clouds and mist. Its surface crawled with life, countless hideous-looking insects packed tightly like scales. As the dragon struck, many were destroyed, but more came swarming over the tail in waves. Ethan's expression twisted in recognition. Candleabyss. Celeste. We've run this far and you're still trying to kill us. His voice cracked with fury as he shouted into the sky. Melinda held her stance, her face drawn. That strike had carried nearly the full power of her attack. Yet all it had done was force back that beast. It hadn't even struck the true threat. That tail? It was just a defense mechanism. A mount. The real opponent hadn't even shown themselves yet. Melinda's thoughts reeled. Who was this enemy? Who was Celeste? And what was Candleabyss? The cloud sea trembled again. A female voice echoed across the mountain. Humph. You're quick. They'll give you that. But let's see how long you can hide in there. Her words hung in the mist, and then, a massive red form flickered deep within the clouds, stirring the air before drifting away. They all heard her voice, Ethan, Victor, Leo, Williams. And they saw her too, just briefly, her silhouette unmistakable. It was Celeste. Ethan turned to Melinda and said, "Thank you, Aunt Melinda." She gave a brief nod, then turned toward the rock wall. With a hand gesture, she stepped forward. The mountain didn't part or shimmer. It remained solid, yet she passed right through it. Leo exhaled long and deep. Williams glanced at him. What? Leo patted his chest dramatically. I thought I'd have to ram my head into another damn wall. The others laughed, recalling the illusion barrier back in Shadow Link's village. One by one they followed Markham into the stone, and a moment later the world changed. Just like Silverwood's hidden territory, this place was springtime itself. Birds sang in the trees, blossoms filled the air with their scent, and warm sunlight bathed the land. Outside it was December. The Ashhorn Mountains were brutal this time of year, wind howling across the ridgeline at over 2,500 meters above sea level. Celia, bundled in 3 layers of down jackets, had been shivering the entire hike. She had asked Ethan earlier if this mountaintop was to be their new home. Head smiled and said it was a secret. She had thought he was joking, but now? She stood frozen, not from the cold but in awe. It felt like stepping into another world. Her eyes darted from one sight to another, unable to take it all in. Even Victor, normally unreadable, looked stunned. Leo was practically hugging Markham, the two laughing like old friends. Only Williams remained calm. Had reacted at first, his eyes flickered but quickly returned to his usual stoic self as if nothing could shake him. Ethan. Brother Ethan. The 3 Chase siblings approached, their voices full of warmth and relief. Chapter 320, A New Home. Upon entering the hidden territory, Ethan finally felt a long overdue sense of peace. The first order of business was paying respects to Matriarch Whitmore. Only after that did he turn his attention to a more pressing issue: setting up the power system. This, as it turned out, was no small task. As he unloaded the equipment, Ethan quickly realized he had no idea how to assemble any of it. This wasn't like building with toy blocks, these were real electrical systems that needed professionals to install. Only then did it hit him: Head been far too optimistic. In his rush to prepare, Head completely overlooked one major detail: he wasn't an electrician. Just as frustration began to set in, Ethan noticed Victor, Leo, and Williams crouching nearby, calmly unboxing the gear. Head spread out. You guys know how to put this together? Victor and Williams just smiled, saying nothing. Leo, ever the loud one, spun a circuit board in his hand like it was a toy. Ethan, you're seriously underestimating us combat vets. He grinned. You think we only know how to fight? He began ticking things off on his fingers. Electricians, welders, machinists, chefs, masons were all certified. Leo rattled off a ridiculous number of survival trades in a single breath. Ethan stared, jaw nearly on the ground. These guys, they were built different. Learning even half of those skills would drive him insane. He stood there watching them work, part impressed, part skeptical. But an hour later he was completely blown away. None of them had likely seen these exact devices before, but they read the dense instruction manuals like it was nothing. 1 hour later the first solar power unit was fully assembled and running flawlessly. From there things moved quickly. By midday 5 power units and oversized storage batteries had been completed. Then came the cables. By the afternoon the entire hidden territory was powered up. Electricity, real stable electricity, now flowed through the Whitmore family's land. Matriarch Whitmore stood by the whole time, beaming. She chuckled with delight, muttering, "Excellent, excellent," over and over. It was clear she was genuinely pleased. That evening, for the first time ever, she agreed to one of Markham's suggestions. They were allowed to roast wild game inside the hidden territory. As Markham prepared the charcoal and firewood, Ethan pulled out a sleek Hind barbecue grill equipped with a built-in smoke purification system. The price tag? Over $6,000. Haha. Bro, you came prepared. Markham laughed. Ethan just grinned and kept unloading. Rice cookers, electric woks, induction cookers, a whole set of kitchen appliances, and 5 of each. As Ethan explained it, they're backups. It's not exactly easy to run to the store from here. Matriarch Whitmore was delighted with the equipment. She told Markham from now on use that grill to make everyone's meals better. She instructed Maria and Melinda to move everything to the kitchen and told Markham to fill in the biogas pit behind the house. It smelled awful. While everyone else bustled about, Ethan quietly approached the old lady. Rubbing his hands, he asked, "Granddad, what do you think about me building a house on that empty plot next door?" He pointed to the open space beside the Whitmore family's 5 small earthen homes. Build a house? Matriarch Whitmore raised an eyebrow. That's quite the project. She gave him a pointed look. How about helping us renovate these 5 little houses of ours while you're at it? Ethan blinked, momentarily stunned. But he quickly recovered. Granddad, I honestly don't think renovation is worth it. The old lattice eyes narrowed sharply. Ethan immediately laughed awkwardly and backpedaled. No, please don't misunderstand. I mean, why not rebuild them instead? Rebuild? She echoed thoughtfully. He nodded. After tapping her staff lightly on the ground twice, Matriarch Whitmore seemed to reach a decision. All right, I'll leave it to you. Just don't touch the ancestral hall, renovate that, nothing more. Understood. With her blessing, Ethan got to work. On a nearby flat stretch of land, he began pulling items from his spatial storage. First came several movable starry sky domes, followed by an assortment of materials, prefabricated self-assembling structures Head bought in bulk. These weren't ordinary homes. They were 3-story luxury villa models, each offering over 1,400 square meters of usable space. In the outside world, these houses were practically a joke, fragile in storms, poor insulation, likely to collapse in an earthquake. But here in the calm, temperate environment of the hidden territory, they were perfect. Easy to build. Visually striking. Utterly luxurious. Of course, the price reflected that, over $1 million per unit. Ethan had materials for 3. The whole set had cost him more than $3 million. Yet as he glanced at the Whitmore family's tiny earthen homes, he knew it was worth every penny. Naturally, all this activity drew attention. But with everyone waiting on Markham's barbecue, no one approached to ask questions. If he needed help, Ethan would call them. By the time he finished unloading and organizing everything, the food was ready. They feasted with joy. Ethan finally met the legendary Dr. Aldrich. The old man looked like a mess, hair wild, clothes wrinkled. He wandered over, grabbed a few pieces of meat, and shuffled away. Ethan greeted him politely, but the man ignored him, muttering, "Impossible, this is impossible." He seemed completely out of touch with reality. Ethan raised a brow quietly, thinking the man might be crazy. Evelyn caught his expression and smiled. "My grandfather's like that whenever he's deep into a difficult medical case." Her words reminded Ethan of something. Markham and Mariah's father was still bedridden inside. He intended to visit but was stopped by Markham's mother. "It's best you don't," she said gently. Puzzled, Ethan let it go. Dinner lasted until well past 5 in the evening. After cleanup, it was nearing 6 o'clock. Everyone picked a starry sky dome and headed inside. In truth, they were just transparent plastic tents. When the curtains were open, you could see the stars, which was how they got their fancy name. Gimmicky, yes, but cozy. Perfect for a night or two. Once the villas were complete, they'd be packed up and forgotten. At exactly 6, Ethereal opened. Ethan released their VR capsules, placing one in each dome according to its occupant. He connected them to the newly installed storage batteries, then returned to his own space. With a thud, his fortress-style VR capsule dropped into place. The entire starry sky dome trembled slightly. Ding! System notification, welcome to the world of Ethereal. Hearing the familiar voice, Ethan finally relaxed. Here he could find some true peace and quiet. Ding! System notification, your friend Moonbeam has sent you a video call request. Connect, Ethan said with a smile. Chapter 321, The Shifting Ranks. Ethan was currently deep within the Shadow Realm territory of the Carnage faction. He accepted the incoming video call from Lila. The light screen shimmered and her image appeared. Lila's delicate face lit up the display, her bright eyes gleaming with joy. Beside her loomed her dragon hatchling, majestic even in the limited frame. Ethan. She beamed, her smile radiant. Earlier, when Ethan had accompanied her near Ashwick, had felt a sudden ominous premonition, an instinctive warning he couldn't ignore. Acting on it, had requested Matriarch Whitmore and the others to escort Lila and Ambrose Silverwood, her clan leader who had remained asleep the entire journey, safely back to Ashwick. Thankfully, the Whitmores hadn't delayed. They departed Ember City just hours after Ethan and made their way straight to Dragon Vault Ridge. Ethan himself had been waylaid for half a day and most of the night in Ember City. By the time he arrived at the Whitmore family's hidden territory, they had only just gotten there too. Now, seeing Lila's bright, unguarded smile, a warmth spread in Ethan's chest. It had been too long since he'd seen her. "Oh, you. Why are you grinning like an idiot?" Lila squinted playfully. "Where even are you? It's pitch black on your side." Ethan reined in his smile and leaned closer to the screen. "I'm on the Carnage faction side," he said. "Might be a while before I can come back. You need to hurry up and level." Lila huffed. "Look at you, you're not number 1 anymore." "What?" Ethan blinked. He quickly opened the in-game leaderboard. His own level was 46 with 92% experience. Just below him. Second place, Overlord level 46, 89%. Third, Leafshade level 45, 73%. Fourth, Slashblade level 45, 61%. Skyblade and Seraph Warrior followed, both already at level 45. The entire top 10 had broken past level 45. But it was the second place name that made Ethan's expression harden, Zachary Steele. That shadow again. Persistent as ever. Only 3% separated them now. Ethan had just reached level 45 before leaving Ember City, and he hadn't leveled seriously in over half a month. Despite that, had gained nearly 2 levels worth of progress. Mostly thanks to Morzan, who had been using Ethan's avatar to roam Ethereal. A good 80% of that experience flowed directly back to Ethan's main character. "I'm still number 1 though," Ethan muttered, slightly relieved. Lila gave him a dramatic pout. "Go check the official site." Ethan pulled up the Ethereal homepage. 2 of the top pinned posts caught his eye. Dragonspire's newbie King Druid God falls to 2nd place in world rankings. Carnage faction's Serpent All player Pig Butcher claims world's number 1 spot. 2nd place? Ethan narrowed his eyes. Why the quotes? Just say 2nd. And who the hell was Pig Butcher? He clicked into the post. Screenshots showed the real-time leaderboard update. Pig Butcher, level 48, 10% experience. 2 levels ahead of him. That kind of gap wasn't small, it was a mountain of experience points. He skimmed further down. Turns out a few days earlier Ethereal had introduced a new divine ability called Growth, an ability that granted a 100% experience gain bonus. And Pig Butcher had gotten it. Ethan vaguely remembered that name. Pig Butcher had once been a rising star in the Carnage faction. But after gaining Growth he became a target. Constantly hunted, his level gains came with just as many losses. He was always stuck in a cycle, leveling fast but dying faster. And now had climbed all the way to the top? Ethan closed the post only to be hit with another surprise. The next one was authored by none other than Overlord, the player hot on his heels. Overlord didn't mince words. He directly called Ethan out in the post, declaring he wouldn't even let him keep his so-called second place. If it had been anyone else, Ethan might have laughed it off. But not him. Overlord wasn't just ambitious, he was dangerous. Ethan exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. The video call was still active. Lila hadn't interrupted, knowing he was reading through everything. She was now moving with her team. Shed already regrouped. When Ethan's gaze finally returned to the call, Lila grinned knowingly. Done reading? So how's it feel? Second place? Ethan rolled his eyes. It's just a number. No big deal. Oh, sure it is, she teased. Then her expression turned slightly more serious. Are you safe over there? He knew she was asking about real-world safety, not in-game. Don't worry, she said. Once Dad wakes up and everything's settled, he'll come find you. At that moment, Lila and her group entered a dungeon. She kept chatting with Ethan casually even as she followed the others in. Though her level was still relatively low, Ethan knew better. Her damage output was no joke. Probably stronger than many level 45s. He recognized the entrance. The Blood Legion Fortress. A level 35 dungeon. But they'd entered on expert difficulty. Skyblade's getting cocky, Ethan thought, watching the feed. Logs in and immediately goes for expert. Then something in the video caught his eye. A familiar figure moving just ahead of Lila. Leafshade? Ethan blinked. Celia actually recruited him? That meant Leafshade, not Skyblade, was leading this run. Ethan had crossed paths with Leafshade in his previous life. Their interactions were purely transactional, client and employer. Now they were practically comrades. Yeah, Lila said. Leo said, head, let me tag along to leech some EXP. 2 people dropped out last minute, so we filled in. She pouted again. Humph, they saw my low level and didn't want me in. Just wait till they see what I can do. She waved her fist at the screen, revealing tiny fangs with an exaggerated snarl. Ethan chuckled. They're in for a surprise. Once Lila unleashed her real damage potential, every guild in the top ranks would be fighting to recruit her. All right, Ethan said, standing up. You go do your dungeon. I got to level 2 or I really will fall behind. He checked the leaderboard again. Overlord's EXP had already ticked up by another %. In the guild chat, players were buzzing about the race for first place. Ethan himself wasn't particularly concerned. There were no tangible rewards for being number 1, unless you were the first to break through level 60. At that point, the portal to Dragon City would open. The first player to arrive would receive enormous rewards. Still, as guild leader of Renegade Alliance, Ethan could feel the shift in atmosphere. Some players were becoming anxious. Others, disappointed. Had created legends since the server's opening. Had been their symbol. Now that symbol was starting to fade. Some players in the chat were his diehard fans. They didn't want a new king. Okay, Effie. Mua. Lila, usually shy, suddenly blew him a kiss. Before he could even react, the call ended. The last thing he saw was her mischievous, triumphant grin. Chapter 322. The General's Tomb. After ending the video call, Ethan crawled out from under the thorny bushes. He had snatched a dragon egg and used a random teleport scroll to escape, landing here where Head logged off and hidden. Days later, he returned, reappearing in the exact same spot. His top priority now was to level up and stabilize his ranking. He glanced at his necklace. The teleportation portal was off cooldown and ready to take him back to the Survivor faction's territory. But once used, it would be another 7 days before he could return to this side. At his current level, heading back to the northern frontier held little value. The highest level monsters in the Survivor faction's domain were only around level 60. That wouldn't cut it. High-level grinding areas would only unlock once the faction borders opened. Until then, staying on the Carnage faction side was the smarter move. Their world map was already fully open. As long as he explored or had the coordinates, he could find monsters of nearly any level. What he needed now were monsters above level 61. That would ensure he earned the 15-level bonus experience while keeping the level suppression tolerable, making his grinding far more efficient. After some careful thought and checking his current location, Ethan remembered a specific area. It wasn't the safest. The zone held level 67 elite monsters. But the monster distribution was scattered, not densely packed for AoE grinding. Still, the experience was high and soloing stronger elites could be just as fast, if not faster, than mowing down hordes of weaker mobs. More importantly, it was the closest high-level spot he knew of. Time spent traveling was time lost on gaining levels, and at this stage getting surpassed was a real risk. Decision made, he moved out without hesitation. 10 minutes later, he stood atop a hill. Though it looked like a mountain, it was actually a massive tomb. Legend said it belonged to a founding general of old. The first layer of this place housed level 67 elite monsters. Over the years, countless guilds from the Carnage faction had tried to clear the entire tomb, only to retreat in failure by the 8th layer. With each layer, the monster's level increased by 10. By the 8th, they were already level 147. Not only did the monster level scale, but their density increased too. Worst of all, the entrance to the 9th layer was guarded by an unrelenting swarm of ranged monsters known as javelin corpses. Their focused volleys made it impossible for anyone to pass through. Before Ethan's rebirth, the world's highest recorded player level was 114. Even stealth classes like rogues and druids only reached the low 130s. No one had ever made it past the 8th layer, let alone seen the final floor of this place, the infamous General's Tomb. In fact, no one even knew how many layers the tomb had. As Ethan climbed, a few scattered mobs appeared, but they were minor monsters not worth grinding. Upon reaching the summit, a massive stone gateway loomed before him. Beyond the gate, a wide stairway led downward into blackness. A low, eerie wail echoed from the depths below, carried on a cold breeze. Ethan shifted into his panther form and crept down the steps in stealth. Ding! System notification. Discovered map. General's Tomb. Experience reward. 500 points. Only 500 experience for discovering a place like this? Stingy as ever. Ethan remembered another game where exploring maps gave massive EXP and stealth players made a living doing just that. Minutes later, he stepped fully inside and gained another 500 points, his first proper entry. Right then, a hulking figure emerged. A humanoid monster clad in tattered farmer's clothes, gripping a large wooden club. A level 67 elite. Just as expected. Ethan didn't bother casting appraisal. He already knew what these were. Corpse guards. He wasn't looking to fight just yet. The club the creature carried didn't look forgiving. But something was off. It turned suddenly, its dull gaze locking on the entrance. Did it sense something? Ethan instantly flattened himself against the wall, keeping his movements slow and precise. He remembered sneaking past this very creature before. Back when he'd been level 110. His rogue skills had let him slip by unnoticed. Now, at a much lower level, even staying hidden felt harder. 10 minutes passed as he silently crept along the wall. He still hadn't reached the far end of the first floor. Just how big was this place? A quick check of his coordinates confirmed he was nearly at his destination. Slipping past the last of the wandering corpse guards, he finally arrived at the base of a cracked stone pillar. He circled around, and there it was. A corpse half buried beneath the rubble. This is it. He quickly knelt down and rummaged through the skeletal remains. Hidden beneath its rotted cloak was a scroll. Lucky. Coming early paid off. He grinned and unrolled the parchment. Ding. System notification. Detected quest scroll. Clear General's Tomb 1. Accept. Yes. Had spent half a day just reaching this spot. Of course he was accepting. Opening the quest panel, he skimmed the objective. Kill corpse guards. 0/30. Simple and direct. Ethan knew this was a repeatable quest. Anyone who looted that corpse could get it, and the scroll seemingly regenerated every day. But this wasn't just any daily, it was worth the effort. The reward was a direct 5% of your current EXP bar. Per tenon. And you could do it 5 times per day. Above level 70 players could no longer receive the quest on this floor. This place, in Ethan's opinion, was designed as a daily leveling spot for the Carnage faction. What else would it be? He closed the panel and scanned the area. Broken stone pillars were scattered across the floor, remnants of an ancient hall. His gaze locked on one pillar in particular, still standing at about 6 or 7 meters tall. Around it, spaced loosely within a 40-meter radius, were 5 corpse guards. Perfect. How to grind them efficiently. Kite and kill. Keep it simple. Still cloaked in stealth, Ethan activated Swift Stride, a movement skill tied to his boots. He darted past one of the corpse guards. Sure enough, the club-wielding brute instantly detected him and gave chase. Its limp was pronounced, movement slow and sluggish. Ethan didn't bother engaging, it couldn't catch him. 10 meters from the stone pillar, he activated another boot skill. Leap. Jump height increased by 300% for 10 seconds. Cooldown. 10 minutes. As the skill triggered, Ethan launched himself into the air. He arced upward about 5 meters. Mid-flight, he activated double jump, yet another boot skill. Allows a secondary jump in midair. Cooldown. 1 minute. He kicked off thin air and rose even higher. By the time he reached 9 meters, he landed cleanly on top of the broken pillar. From there, he had the high ground, and all 5 corpse guards had taken the bait. Let the grinding begin. Chapter 323. Ascent. Ethan stood at a high vantage point overlooking the ruins below. The corpse guard he had lured was still chasing him, relentlessly, single-mindedly. It had been ages since he'd used the owl form to kite monsters like this. Back then he did it because his damage was too low to fight heathen. Now, honestly, he just felt lazy. Since he had to kill them one by one anyway, why not let the system do half the work? Only a fool would waste effort needlessly, especially when he had skills that boosted his jump height and mobility. He checked the leaderboard again. Zatri's character Overlord was hot on his heels, only 2% behind in experience. That was too close for comfort. Ethereal leaderboard updated every hour on the hour. He had to stay ahead. The problem though, he didn't even know his current experience count. Ethan strolled to the edge of the massive stone pillar, peering down at the corpse guard pacing beneath him. Solar Flare. Moonfire. 2 spells in quick succession. Damage numbers popped up. 3, 5. Ethan blinked in surprise. He had actually broken through its defense? He didn't stop. He kept alternating Moonfire and Solar Flare, raining magic from above. Thanks to the attributes on his exclusive weapon, his Solar Flare and Lunar Beam spells were hitting far harder than usual. Attribute 4. When equipped after using Sun or Moon spells in owl form, the next spell from a different element deals 50% increased damage. 102. 189. Those numbers practically screamed opportunity. This was his grinding paradise. Corpse Guard HP. 332,591/335,000. If he kept up this steady output, he could bring one down in just over half an hour. While calculating, his hands didn't stop casting. Then boom! A solar flare exploded against the corpse guard's armor. 1,418. A red critical number flashed. Ethan's eyes widened. Holy crap, was that a fatal strike? That was 5 times the damage, not just multiplying the standard 1.5x critical hit but increasing the total damage after crit by 5-fold. Divine abilities really were divine. Just a few more crits like that and he could cut the grind time in half. Below, the corpse guard let out an angry roar, slamming its massive wooden club against the stone pillar. Dust and pebbles rained down, but the platform held steady. The pillar Ethan stood on was easily 10 meters in diameter, huge but cracked and weathered. He wondered how it got so damaged. Looking around, he saw more fallen pillars scattered throughout the area. They must have once supported the dome of the general's tomb. Now most had collapsed. And yet the ceiling above hadn't come down. Probably just the system's logic at work. Whatever. Not his problem. He kept casting owl form active energy management on point. Maintaining a perfect balance on his energy bar let him trigger his exclusive weapons passive again and again. Out of curiosity, Ethan opened his attribute panel mid-fight. Not a druid / not a rogue. Class, druid. Race, human. Level 46. Faction, survivor. Bloodline. King of elves. Divine. Strength, 480. Increases physical attack. Intelligence, 480. Increases magical attack max mana. Agility, 480. Increases speed energy regen. Stamina, 460. Increases defense. Vitality, 460. Increases max health. Special attributes reinforced. Omni +5 mastery +17 critical +16 haste +10 lifesteal +3%. Attack power, 3049 to 4306. Base, 1056. Plus, equipment, 1716 to 2859, +10%. Defense, 1962 to 2163. Health, 10,120. Free points, 0. General skills. Advanced appraisal, 152/3000. Can view monster attributes up to 15 levels above. After equipping the blazing necklace, his stats were even higher. In fact, his current attack power matched what he had at level 80 or 90 in his previous life. And with lifesteal +3%, every hit kept him sustained. If not for the system's suppression, he could probably face this monster toe-a-toe. Then, ding, system notification. Killed, corpse guard. Experience bonus for killing above level, 5,500%. Total EXP, 375,20000. Base, 335,000 plus bonus. 184,25000 plus divine ability. 1876000. Ding. Congratulations. Your level has increased to 47. Over 30 million experience in one kill. Ethan stared at the numbers. What the hell? That was absurd. He recalled that a level 67 elite monster should only give 3,350 experience points. But then it clicked. After level 60 monsters in Ethereal gave 100x the normal EXP. But the system also dramatically increased the experience required to level up. It was early stages still. Most players were nowhere near level 60. The game's built-in suppression was still keeping progress slow. But Ethan had bypassed it. Now he was riding the curve. Zachary, you want to catch up? Dream on. You won't even see my shadow. The so-called second place? Heck, let me show you what power leveling really looks like. He checked the time. 13 minutes to take down one corpse guard. Current time, 8 p.m. Tonight they'd learn the meaning of despair. He spotted 4 more corpse guards nearby, each one within range. Moonfire, 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 moonfire. He cast 5 spells in rapid sequence, drawing aggro from all of them. He didn't stop. He hit them each with Solar Flare and applied both debuffs. In Owl form, Solar Flare was an AoE spell. Whether it hit one or a group, the goal was the same: chip away their health and keep them focused on him. More importantly, he was building up astral energy. Enough for his next move. Starfall Barrage. Deals 45.76% spell power as astral damage to all enemies within a 40-meter radius over 8 seconds. It was perfect for group fights. Even better, it didn't require channeling, so he could continue casting while it dealt damage. And really, any unspent astral energy was just wasted potential. Every tick of damage helped. 15 minutes later, one of the corpse guards collapsed to the ground. Ding. System notification. Killed. Corpse guard. EXP bonus. 5,000%. Total. 3417000. Base. 335000 plus bonus. 1675000 plus divine growth. 1708500. Another level up. Even with a 20-level gap, the EXP bonuses were insane. His experience bar surged to 67%. That one had taken a little longer, critical hits had been scarce, but he wasn't complaining. Better yet, the remaining 4 corpse guards had already lost 10 to 12% of their HP from the AoE damage. Ethan grinned. His experience bar was rising like wildfire. And he still had 40 minutes before the next leaderboard update. Chapter 324. Ascent. 2. Time, 2100 hours. The official forums of Ethereal exploded again. Under Overlord's latest post, tens of thousands of replies flooded in. But this time the crowd wasn't cheering for him. They were dragging him through the mud. Simultaneously, another popular post had its title quietly changed. Originally titled Druid God is second place, it now read, Druid God rises again. Surpasses Pig Butcher, reclaims the world's #1 rank. Somewhere in Ember City, Zachary stormed out of his VR capsule like a lion unchained. In seconds, the room around him was in shambles, glass shattering and furniture cracking under his fury. Moments earlier, the Dragonspire Northern Frontier leaderboard had updated. And to his disbelief, the rankings were the same. Leaderboard, Dragonspire Northern Frontier. First, Not a Druid. Level 48 EXP 19.8%. Second, Overlord. Level 46 EXP 93.6%. Zachary had been waiting all day for the 9 PM refresh. He planned to crush Ethan's rank and pressure Renegade Alliance into submission. But when the update hit, he couldn't believe his eyes. He stared in silence for a full minute before reality set in. Not a Druid had already hit level 48. Nearly 2 full levels above him, and had kept going. His confidence shattered. The smug post head just published was already getting ripped apart. Permanent lie. Overlord, eat your own words. No food in lunchbox. You really want to challenge the Druid God? Might as well slam your head against a wall. Blood Shadow Assassin Thun. Where did this clown come from? Do you even know your place? It wasn't brutal, but it stung enough. Zachary read the replies one by one, each one twisting the knife deeper. With his pride bleeding out, he logged out without a word. Ethan, he muttered, eyes burning with rage. He had already investigated Ethan's identity once. Even arranged an assassination. But that man had failed and was now missing. Well, not missing. Dealt with. Zachary made sure the man left no loose ends behind. Not even a body. After that mess, he laid low for a while. But the investigation on Ethan never stopped. Head learned that Ethan was from the 9th Division. And more than that, he was an energy user. That revelation made Zachary pause. He wasn't afraid of Ethan exactly. But he knew not to poke a dragon in the eye. Especially one trained in energy. What worried him even more was the 9th Division starting to dig into his background. They hadn't found his real identity yet, but it was enough for his family to step in. The warning had been sharp and personal. Calm down or be eliminated for the good of the family. Zachary had never feared many things in life, but that moment chilled him. The Steele family didn't build their underground empire in the US by playing nice. They were merciless to outsiders and their own blood. Anyone who endangered the family would be erased. No exceptions. In the weeks since Zachary had used the Steele Corporation's name to acquire and consolidate guilds across Ethereal. It was official business, part of his assigned task. And for a while things had been going well. His character had leveled quickly, his gear improved, and now 70 to 80% of the guilds in the Northern Frontier region belonged to Steele Corp. He even tried to reach out to Renegade Alliance's acting guildmaster. But his people were turned away at the door. They couldn't even get a meeting, so much for acquisition. And Renegade Alliance wasn't some throwaway guild. It was the largest in the region with serious influence. Even Marcus, once a major contender around Harmony City, had been forced to retreat and regroup in Springhaven after a crushing defeat by them. In Blackridge, another guild, Nocturne Order, had formed a coalition with smaller groups to resist Steele's influence. It was turning into open opposition. Despite the tension, Zachary had been focused on leveling. Ethan's progress had appeared to slow, and he thought he'd found his chance to pull ahead. His plan? A brute force grind. For the last half-month, he'd deployed 900 people, 3 full groups. The rogue group drew aggro and cleared out ranged mobs. The warriors formed a perimeter fortress to block melee enemies. The priest stood behind, endlessly healing. Zachary remained in the center. Alone. Not even in a party. He just cast his area effect spells on repeat, wiping out wave after wave of mobs. The monsters couldn't reach him. They were too busy clawing at the tanks shielding him. The warriors didn't dare retaliate. If they stole his kills, they'd be stealing experience. They had no choice but to grit their teeth, hold their shields, and suffer. It was an efficient grind, but nowhere near as fast as Ethan's inscription-based leveling. Of course, not many people knew about that method. Plaguewood Valley was remote, and almost no one had the reputation and favorability required to unlock the store that sold arcane inscriptions. But Ethan knew, thanks to his memories from a previous life. If Ethan ever found out how Zachary was grinding, he would have laughed his ass out. Ethan hadn't met Zachary face to face yet. Celia had mentioned several times that Steel Consortium wanted to speak with him. He always refused, because Ethan knew himself. The moment they met, he wouldn't be able to hold back. And now wasn't the time. Renegade Alliance wasn't strong enough yet. And more importantly, there was no gain in fighting now. Only wasted time, wasted money, and wasted momentum. He was waiting for the fortress system to launch. Only then would taking over the northern frontier region truly begin. According to his estimate, the system would launch in just over 3 months. Until then, his focus was on strengthening the guild, both its cohesion and its firepower. Ding. System notification. Clear General's Tomb 1. Corpse Guards defeated, 30 of 30. Quest complete. Gained EXP plus 5%. Ding. System notification. Clear General's Tomb 2. New objective. Kill Corpse Guard 0/35. Accept quest. Decline, Ethan muttered. After 8 hours of non-stop grinding, averaging 4 kills an hour, he had finally completed the repeatable quest again. But the reward no longer excited him. He checked his level. Still 24% to go before hitting 51. Earlier, when he killed his 8th Corpse Guard, head hit level 49. At number 18, he leveled again, 50. The climb was getting steeper. As his level rose, the Corpse Guard's relative level advantage shrank. Bonus experience was dropping off. The grind was slowing. It was time to move to the second layer of the General's Tomb. He took down the final Corpse Guard, watching it collapse. Ding. System notification. Congratulations. Your level has increased to 51. Ding. System notification. Congratulations. Solar Flare skill increased to level 19. Damage increased. 2 quick dings. His owl form skills had all leveled up during the grind. While the next wave of Corpse Guards began to respawn, he leapt down from the stone pillar to gather loot. Had done this many times before. But this time, something different caught his eye. He reached down and picked up a heavy cold shard of metal. Ding. System notification. Obtained item. General's Token. Fragment. X1. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions. Just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.